So welcome. Today I thought it would be interesting to share a client's journey from, binging and emotionally eating to finding that ease and peace in their body and around food. I love watching videos like this, seeing someone's experience, because you get a sense of little nuances and things they did that you wouldn't normally see. And everyone's experience is a little bit different. And so I thought it'd be interesting to walk you through what a journey looks like for a client, because it'll help you see what the journey might look like for you, or maybe places where you need more support. And so it's going to give you a lot of ahas about your emotional eating. So if you are new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. And I personally love to watch people's experiences of whatever they're going through. I find that I can hear what hurdles they face and different sort of, obstacles that they have to go against and how they actually move through it. And so I'll be sharing a client's journey with you to give you an idea of what might be happening and the things that I saw happening and coming up for her that might be helpful for you. So I had a client recently come into my program. Her name is Kelly. And when she first came into the program, she actually had tried many things to help her emotional eating. So this might resonate with you. She had been on different diets for many years, maybe even decades at this point, over a decade. She had been in therapy, in and out of therapy for many years. And she had recently, family members were asking her to try Ozempic and to do different things. She had also recently gone through a very stressful period, and her binging was out of control. So she was binging daily for about a year and a half, several times a day at certain points, she mentioned. And so when she came into the program, she just needed to stop binging daily. It was just so out of control. And so a therapist recommended my program to her. And so she started the program. And so the program has certain phases, and it is moving through different areas that we need to connect back to as emotional eaters, which are around food, our body, our emotions. So within the first few weeks of the program, she was implementing sort of the nourishment piece, the true nourishment piece. So she was switching out her morning routine, switching out certain foods to optimize digestion. And she was able to do this for her morning. She was able to add in some of the suggestions. I also give clients specific supplements to help them with their digestion and certain issues that they have particular to them. And so as she started incorporating this, within the first few weeks, she found that her digestion had shifted, and her moods were shifting as well. So her digestion shifted. She came into the program having IBS, and her binging stopped from being daily to completely stopping. It wasn't that she was still going towards foods to comfort and soothe her and engaging in behaviors that wouldn't help her, but she was able to stop that daily binging. She wasn't choosing the best foods for herself, but she wasn't going into this sort of compulsive binge. And part of the reason was that she was incorporating the key strategies around true nourishment, optimizing her digestion, taking specific supplements, but we were also doing particular work around her triggers. So from her, what happens is that she keeps a food and mood journal. And this is not like a typical diet or anything like that. This is a journal meant to help you see where you're being triggered. So we can see from that, are you nourishing yourself? So sometimes we think we're nourishing ourselves or eating enough, and we're really restricting ourselves or going too long without eating, and that creates binging and restriction. And then once we sort of clean that up, we can look at where are her actual emotional eating triggers. And so for her, that would happen around the evening, and then she would engage with more emotional eating. She would drink, and she would also be in the company of people that didn't support her, that triggered even more emotional eating. So she had several triggers happening in this area, but one set off the other. And so we started working on those triggers. So the way we work with triggers inside of the Emotional Eating Evolution program is that we are looking at, of course, where you're triggered emotionally by looking at how you're eating and nourishing yourself. So we eliminate physical restriction, and we're looking at what's coming up. Something else with Kelly I'm going to mention, it was around the holidays. So there were additional triggers coming up for her that as we moved through the program became clearer and clearer. So we worked with those evening triggers with, part of it is doing private somatic meditation sessions with me where we look at the trigger and we really dive deep into how it is creating this emotional eating pattern, and we get to the root of it. And we start clearing it out from the root. And so within about 1 or 2 of these sessions, this is what really helped to shift Kelly's digestion, even more so with her IBS. We keep track of bowel movements and what they look like because there's a certain spot that helps us to tell if your digestion's optimized. And because she had IBS, her bowels were very off track for, what's considered normal. Within one of these sessions, it completely transformed. And this is because irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, is very connected to our emotional state, to our nervous system, to deeper traumas. And what happens is that these traumas, these unresolved emotions, these events that happened in the past that are in our body, they stay in our nervous system and they're sort of on this low level, and they create this chronic stress. And this chronic stress is feeding into things like having digestive issues and IBS and certain physical symptoms. And so when we got into that somatic session and deeply into the trauma, into the roots in the body, and cleared it out and shifted it and created a new way forward, that completely shifted her nervous system. So now she will her body was physically able to shift the way it was digesting and having bowel movements within literally it happened almost instantly, you could say, because we're working with the body. It's so powerful. It's not that you do it in the body and you wait 4 weeks. We can start seeing tangible shifts. So she started noticing right away her binging was gone. Her IBS had improved significantly, and now new triggers were presenting around her body. And so that's another key piece we look at in the program, is around body acceptance. We're looking at the deeper traumas we have around that, the way we feel that way about ourselves, and just other triggers. So some of the triggers that were coming up for Kelly are people judging her body, not accepting her. And deeper than that, what was coming up for her was, she was able to create changes in the morning and at lunch, but when it came to the evening, when she'd usually triggered into her emotional eating, there was another layer where she just couldn't shift the types of foods she was eating. So she was no longer binging, but she found it hard to make healthier choices. She was still ordering out and, just kind of feeling defeated. And so there was this deeper layer. So we're looking at all of these triggers. The one around the body acceptance kind of tied in with that evening, and it started to all be a similar pattern. So there's a similar root underlying this. And as we dove deeper into those root issues, what was coming up was this acceptance of her. It wasn't that she looked a certain way, she didn't feel accepted. It was that she didn't feel accepted and seen and heard and validated as a child. That created this inner non-acceptance, you could say, because her needs weren't met, and that drove her to want to be accepted. And so she was doing all these things like the diets and, all of these things, and then also not feeling worthy of having that body. And that created all of these coping strategies that I see with emotional eaters. So she, from a very young age, was wanting to shift the way her body looked. She wanted to change her hair and that, her body image. And some of that can be very normal. You're wanting to express yourself as like a teenager. But when it's coming from this wounded place, it's not about expression. It's about trying to be accepted. So there's a difference. It can look the same way on the outside, that you're expressing yourself, but it's coming from a place that doesn't feel good enough. When it's coming from your authenticity, it can show up the same way, but there's a different energy to it. And so for Kelly, it was coming from this place of not accepting herself, of wanting to be better, to wanting to be liked. She never felt liked and never felt that she fit in, which was coming from, the patterns in her childhood, and it just kept playing and playing. And so she would, go to food to cope and soothe herself, or try the diets and then the yo-yo dieting and just not feel good in her body. Or when she reached the weight, she didn't feel good enough on the inside. So there was no point in, having the right body or all of this, because it didn't equal the acceptance and validation and love that she was really looking for, or the compliments from the outside, because she didn't feel like that on the inside. And so we started shifting these deeper patterns so that she could start feeling acceptance as a base level of herself in her body, and seeing why she didn't feel worthy and valuable enough to make the shifts and changes. It wasn't that she didn't love healthy food, or she had a Peloton or movement or anything. It's just that she wasn't implementing these steps. Something was always holding her back, making her feel like she couldn't do it. She was always in this self-sabotaging mode, which is really, we're trying to protect ourselves because we're coping with all of this deep discomfort and emotional distress. And so as we moved through this, another layer that came off was having more acceptance for herself, actually seeing where this pattern came from, realizing that something wasn't wrong with her. There were all of these projections put on her as a child from her parents, from their upbringing. This trauma was now multi-generational. And so she realized it wasn't her fault, because for so long she felt something was wrong or bad about her, that she didn't even deserve to take care of herself. And so she started shifting out of that, and she started realizing how much she internalized that she wasn't liked or lovable. And so she just expected that on the outside. And so when we really got into that deeper core and started resolving that, with the private sessions, but also there are guided meditations she does on her own. So she's doing the process. She has the tools to do it on her own. She was able to then start adding more strategies in around nourishing her body. She was doing more body acceptance, getting to those deeper levels, having movement out of enjoyment and taking care of herself versus punishment. And the last sort of update that I heard from her was that, so she was also using alcohol to cope. She had a stretch of 7 days of not using any alcohol, and that had been the longest stretch in 5 years. So she was seeing she didn't even like the taste of alcohol. She didn't even want to have it. She was just feeling so good. And that she was on the right track, because she realized, she got in touch with her true authentic self, and that she's worthy of being taken care of, and to have movement and to feel good in her body. And she was also now having boundaries and speaking up for herself. So this is the power. And, that equals confidence. That equals feeling at ease in your body. That feelings like that exhale of knowing what's going on, of not, being at the whim of food and feeling out of control. All of this, she shifted from the beginning with binging and feeling out of control, not feeling good, poor self-esteem, to now feeling confident, and she's on the right track and doing things because she cares about herself, not because she wants to punish herself. So this is the shift, and this is the journey. And throughout points, the biggest point, because it was around the holidays, a lot of triggers were coming up for her of judgment of others, judgment of herself. And so that's actually really great to have lots of triggers, but it can also be really triggering. But if you have the tools to work through that, you're going to get such a huge payoff, because you're actually getting into the deeper roots and shifting them and realizing a clearer path forward, that it's not what has been happening in you? What have you been believing about yourself? What are the unresolved traumas inside of you that have been running the show? And you start resolving them and moving forward. And so for someone to go through the program for 12 weeks and to have these results, I would love to say this is unusual. This is typically what I see, but I'm always proud of each client that goes through the program. It's amazing, that shift, because when you start, it feels so impossible. How will I ever get to this end result? Because if you've been trying all the diets or therapy and all of these things for years and years, you think, how can you make such a deep impact? But I see this time and time again, because emotional eating is such a specific issue, and there's so many layers to it, that when we have a program that's looking at all of the layers and giving you all of the support and guidance through those layers and that specific issue, because everyone's journey is very similar, You're able to move through. You're not hitting your head against resistance or willpower or not feeling good enough. You're actually getting into the deeper roots and shifting that so that you can come back to wholeness, and that ease and peace and confidence that you were looking for was always within you. There are just all of these layers in the way that you couldn't see. And it's really difficult out there when you go to therapy or you go to a personal trainer or you do a diet. It's not to say these things don't have a place, but if you have emotional eating, that's not the place for you. You need to have all of these things working together because it's too compartmentalized. A therapist is not aware of how food impacts your body, or a nutritionist is not looking at the psychology or the deeper trauma. Even in therapy, they're not looking at that deeper trauma root issues. And so we need sort of a structure to flow from so that we're looking and hitting all of these key areas. So it was so amazing to watch my client's journey and transformation. It's always so inspiring to me to watch it. Even though I've been through this journey myself, I see clients go through it. It re-inspires me to see this transformation. So I hope this has helped you see a little bit more about the journey and what it looks like. Of course, through this journey, there are limiting beliefs and there are resistances and setbacks that come up, but we work with them all. We do the deeper work to shift them so that they open you up and you're moving forward and always connecting back to what is true for you. So I hope you have loved this little sort of drop into the journey of what it looks like. If you have any questions about it, let me know. If you are ready to resolve your emotional eating or curious about it, I would love to invite you to find out more about the Emotional Eating Evolution program. This is my 12-week container full of lots of guidance, support, coaching, and the step-by-step process to move through your emotional eating. It is a container that is really looking at all of the layers that are holding you back, all of the levels that are holding you back from resolving your emotional eating, so you can finally get to that ease, peace, and confidence around food and in your body and in your life. So if you are ready to do that or you're curious about it, you can find out more about the program below. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't, and I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.